Welcome back to This Morning, everybody, and thank you for being part of our DBS family. During the week, we observed World Environment Day, and one of the activities that took place was a collaboration between Massey Stores and the Department of Fisheries. All the students that took part in the most recent plastic reduction competition had the opportunity to enjoy a film related to exactly what they were doing, which is called A Plastic Ocean. Let's check it out.
The Trust is partnering with the Department of Fisheries and, of course, Massey Stores on World Environment Day to organize a viewing of a movie called A Plastic Ocean. As you would remember, the theme for Earth Day focused on plastic pollution, and now we have another observance trying to bring attention and raising awareness about the need to reduce and, if possible, end plastic pollution, because this is not only impacting our marine environment, but also us as humans. When the fishes or the turtles ingest the plastic, which they think is food, we in turn will end up eating these things, which can cause health issues. So the Trust believes it's very important to partner with Fisheries and Massey to raise awareness, and especially amongst our young people, about this important issue. I would also like to bring to the public's attention that this same movie, A Plastic Ocean, will be shown at the Finance Administrative Center in Point Seraphin, Castries on June 13th. That's next Wednesday, and it is completely free. And of course, again, on board we have Fisheries and Massey Stores. So we're encouraging the public to come and learn more about why it is important to reduce and, if possible, eliminate especially single-use plastic, whether it's plastic bags, using plastic straws, and the plastic bottles that you see sometimes lining our oceans. This is really not a beautiful sight, especially for a tourist destination when the cruise ship comes in and you see the plastic bottles and the bags floating on the surface, and for our health as well. So we really need to take this seriously.
The Fisheries Department is part of an event being hosted for World Environment Day. The theme is Beat Plastic Pollution, and we're doing this to observe World Environment Day. Friday as well is World Oceans Day, so this week we have 2 international days being celebrated, and we felt it necessary to bring the students to watch A Plastic Ocean. It is a movie that features plastic pollution, the impact on the environment, on the ocean, and the students would get to see firsthand, get to see in sound, picture, and motion what are those impacts. Most of them who are here today were participants in a plastic waste reduction campaign, and they today will get to see another aspect of this. Hopefully it will spark their creativity and interest even more, and we would want them to become advocates for the environment. So we'll continue in our efforts. We are very happy to see the numbers that are coming into Caribbean cinemas this morning. We have a second viewing at 12:30, so in all, 500 students just about would have viewed this movie, and hoping that they would bring the message home, because plastic pollution is a real issue, not just in St. Lucia, but across the globe. We have approximately in excess of 15 schools attending, so the invitations were sent out, and each school has a different number of students coming through. So they would have confirmed, but in total we have about 15 schools, 500 students who are our target, and we do have this movie being shown again for the public next week, Wednesday the 13th, at the Financial Center. So the movie will be open for the public to view it, and if you do have a Netflix account, you could go on and look for this movie. It's A Plastic Ocean. Get an insight on what plastic is doing to our environment. This event has been sponsored and supported by Massey. Like we had the campaign, it was also supported by Massey, and we stakeholders and agencies are working alongside these agencies that support and collaborate on environmental issues. And again, we just applaud them for what they are doing, and we will continue in our efforts to be stewards for the environment and St. Lucia.
Now, just in case you're curious, as you can see, the students all enjoyed it and were very much engrossed and engaged. You can also view this film, A Plastic Ocean, on Netflix. Of course, it's all about bringing that awareness about the environment. And of course, we do know that plastic is a major issue. And finally, we're really bringing it on a crackdown here in St. Lucia. So also want to say good morning to all the students, as well as Massey Stores and also the Department of Fisheries. Welcome back, family. So it is a Free Up Friday right here on This Morning. So this segment is going to be a little bit on the lighter side. I think you're going to find it very interesting. We have a very special person, Mr. Dials, who is an enthusiast when it comes to music, but specifically country and western music, with his own experience being part of country and western bands as well. And he's going to shed some light this morning on one of the theories as to why we St. Lucians really love our country and western music.
Hi, I'm John Dials. I'm not a historian. I happen to love country western music, and I was fortunate enough to play in several country bands and even had the opportunity to play in Nashville back in the 70s, way back. So I've always loved country music, and when I moved here to St. Lucia, I was so pleased to find out that St. Lucians love their country music as well. I did a little looking into it and found out that there were 2 U.S. military bases here on the island back in World War II days. As a matter of fact, I think we're sitting on the property right now where the U.S. Naval Air Station was. It was an anti-submarine facility. And so typically back then, that when the U.S. would establish a military base, they'd bring along an AM radio station to entertain the troops at night. So those St. Lucians that were fortunate enough back in those days to have an AM radio, they tuned into the armed forces signal that was coming on AM and fell in love with the music, the message of country music. And I think the parallels are really interesting because country music in general has been developed in the southern part of the United States, and that's where there's been more hardship and strife historically. If you look at cities like New York and Chicago up in the north, there's always been plenty of jobs and, and steel mills, but historically in the South, at times have been tough, and still to this day, it's a little tougher in the South in the United States than it is in the North. So the message of the country music was about hardship and breakups, and I just think it's something that St. Lucians could really relate to, was not only the music part, but the lyric part of it was really relative to many St. Lucians' lives back then and still today. You know, there's just been, there's a lot of breakups and songwriters when they lose a loved one, or through a divorce or something. Those that are talented enough to be able to create lyrics and music, they want to write about those experiences. Here you got Johnny Cash and Kenny Rogers, and I've been fortunate enough to get to know Kenny a little bit and his band. I used to have a company where we made earpieces for performers. You see those earpieces in their ears, and so it was my job as the hearing specialist to go around and take the impressions of the ears. And so, as a matter of fact, Kenny Rogers, bass player, is a really good friend of mine, and he knows about this project, and he remembers playing down here with Kenny. And I think the opening act for Kenny was, I think maybe UB40 or one of those popular newer reggae acts. So that would have been quite a show to see UB40 and Kenny Rogers. George Jones, of course, No Show Jones. He had a history of having a few sips before the show, and sometimes a few too many, and didn't show up. Well, I'm sure it's here to stay. I'm not a huge fan of some of the newer country that's coming out of Nashville, but again, that's a generational thing that my folks didn't necessarily love the Beatles when they came out, but of course, we all fell in love with them. So I understand that music change happens in music, and so country's definitely here to stay. I'm not so sure the youngsters here in St. Lucia are appreciating it as much as maybe some of the older folks, and probably a little bit more out in the countryside around here, up at Moshi and out in Bexon, and those probably areas, or country's probably a little bit more popular than it is in Castries. I don't know that, but I'd just take a guess at that. And so country's definitely here to stay, absolutely, and that's a good thing.
That's how we do it, a little bit on the lighter side, and it does make a lot of sense. So, a lot of people question and ask, why the love? Where did it come from? So now we know. And of course, that's what we aim to do. You better get your soca size gear ready, because